Before I booked my first role in Stranger Things, both me and Zero noticed something very funny about a lot of the tapes. I was smiling through almost the entire thing. I've recently found out this is actually something a lot of actors go through. So today I'm gonna go through not only the causes, because it's important to know why it's happening, to know how to fix it, but I'm also going to talk about the different solutions to those causes so you can stop smiling through every single moment. The last reason is actually a way you can spot sociopaths. I don't think y'all are sociopaths, it just happens to be a quirky way to determine that. I want to give a shout out to lollybally4095 for being the inspiration for this video. Let me know in the comments any video ideas y'all have and you can be the inspiration for the next one. Reason number one, you are desperately trying to be liked. And as social animals, a smile becomes a softer, more likable way of presenting ourselves. So when you're first getting in this performance mode and you want the audience's approval, your face will naturally try to gain that approval, whether consciously or subconsciously, by just being the most positive version of yourself possible. You can clearly see how much I was doing this in this one audition tape from Your Honor. She's dead. What are you doing? In many ways, the solution's a mindset shift. However, there are some practical tools that you can use to, hi buddy. It's all about focusing and dialing in on what does my character want, letting that be the only thing you're going after in the scene. And by focusing so clearly on what you want, you don't have time to be afraid of what the audience's perspective of what you want is. Reason number two, nerves. It's a naturally stressful situation to not only be speaking in front of people, but to also open yourself up for judgment when you're portraying these intense emotions in front of people. I will blow up this entire apartment. I don't care, I will blow it up. Zero hesitation. Your body is spiking this adrenaline. It's getting you into that fight or flight modality. The smile becomes a subconscious way of soothing that adrenaline and releasing some of that serotonin that helps to bring at least a little bit of that stress down. There are basically 4 ways you can attack this nervous energy. The greatest mindset shift I got from one of my mentors, Glenn Morshower at the Extra Mile Acting Studio, is to start to celebrate and welcome the nerves instead of resisting them. The great thing about the fight or flight response is you have this huge boost in energy that you can now use to fuel the intense part of the scene. A lot of times when you're first learning how to channel that nervous energy, it just comes across in shaky voice, shaky hands. It's usually because you're trying so hard to resist them, where the entire scene is now about trying to pretend like you're not nervous, trying to overcome your nervous energy instead of just focusing on the character. Just lean into everything you're feeling because it becomes part of the nuance of the character if you allow it. That is obviously easier said than done. So here are some practical actionable steps you can take. Really focus on doing some breath work. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. You can even try this specific breathing technique.
The 15-second breath. 8 seconds in, hold it for 1.5 seconds, 4 seconds out, hold it for 1.5 seconds. Do that 4 times, 8 times, it'll break a panic attack.
Sometimes when you're nervous, you stop breathing. Really focusing in on the breath gives your brain enough oxygen to actually clearly think about what it is you're about to do. You can bring it down to a chair. Obviously, there are certain restrictions. If you're on set and the director is blocking it out, you can't be like, I'm gonna sit right now so I'm less nervous. But let's say you're doing a monologue or an audition tape where you don't necessarily have a clear you need to sit or you need to stand to make the scene make sense. Bringing it to a chair will naturally ground the scene. It's gonna naturally bring your heart rate down, and you can focus a lot more on the emotional side of the scene instead of the physicality of a scene, like you feel the pressure to do when you're standing. Last one for nerves is exposure therapy. The more you do it, the easier it'll get each time. And a great example is public speaking. I've had the blessing to go be a public speaker to a couple of different schools. Every single time I've done it, it's been just a little less terrifying. Maybe you do a monologue just in front of your mom, and then you build up to a monologue in front of your siblings, and then maybe eventually you join a class, and then you build up to an intense emotional scene in front of a class. Your body's a little bit more comfortable instead of uncomfortable, the way it is if you're just snapping your fingers and trying to perform in front of a big audience for the first time. It'll never be you never get nervous again, but it'll at least give you tools to manage those nerves. It's just, oh, I've been here before. Yes, I'm nervous, but I know it's not going to destroy everything. Number 3 is the interesting one, which is the phenomena called Dupers Delight. This is more so a body language term that, for example, the behavioral panel will use when breaking down the different lies a serial killer or sociopath might be having whenever they're in the interrogation. The slight smile that will often appear in the corner of your mouth when you believe you are successfully manipulating somebody. You think you are being successful in telling a lie. There's this inherent enjoyment that you are outsmarting somebody. Beginning actors that have not yet learned how to fully invest into a scene, when they believe they are successfully pulling the wool over the audience's eyes and pretending like they're feeling these emotions and being this character that they're not, a little bit of that Dupers Delight will come out. You're still in the phase where you think acting is about pretending. Acting is actually about experiencing. There's that funny thing a lot of people say where, oh, if they're an actor, how do we ever know if they're lying or telling the truth? Acting is still the truth in accordance to the story. I heavily recommend journaling from the perspective of the character because it's the easiest way to really start to blend the reality of your internal struggle with the reality of the character's internal struggle. Parts of you come out into the character's journal along with random parts that you have no idea where they came from. It is like a demon takes over your body where you get possessed by this character and then it finds some way to flow out through you. All of a sudden, you have something you're fighting for, which is to honor this character's truth, combined with whatever is on paper. And you turn this fictionalized character into this very real, very intimate part of yourself. Most of the time, actors that are experiencing Dupers Delight are way too focused on themselves in the scene, instead of being purely invested in your scene partner. The lines will come out as they're supposed to come out. You don't have to feel like you're performing the lines. You don't have to add anything to the lines, and you're just purely letting the person affect you. The less you think about yourself in the scene, the less worried you are about acting, and the more real, raw, and authentic it's going to feel. If you feel like it's a little contradictory that I'm saying combine your internal struggle with the character's internal struggle and then don't at all focus on yourself, just focus on your scene partner, it's because it's a mix of both where you become so intimately connected, you're not trying to pretend to be this person, and then you combine that with only focusing on the person across from you from the perspective of your character. It's combining both of those concepts at the same time. Now that you know why you're smiling and you have a couple of tools to stop that smiling, you're ready to start auditioning and you want to know, how can I get on Netflix in 2024? Go click this video and I talk about how beginner actors can start laying the foundations for having these bigger opportunities and bigger auditions.